Good morning, everybody. This is Martin John, and we are here to talk about the Tao Te Ching. The Tao Te Ching is an ancient text written in the 6th century BC. It's all about how nature works, what life is, and how we live it in nature. What we're here to, how we're here to express, and it's really a wonderful sort of text that helps us realize that what sort of situation we're in, right? We're in a situation in which everybody that we're surrounded by, everybody that we interact with, everything that we interact with has a purpose. And eventually that thing, that whether it's the rock or whether it's a person or whether it's an animal or whether it's the air or whatever, everything that we interact with, everything that we engage with is temporary. But there's something beneath it all that is not temporary, something that is beyond time, beyond temporary and forever, beyond all things. And we are part of that. We're part of it all. And eventually all of it will return to that which is Tao. Tao, people look at it as, when we talk about it, it's talked about as the way. The way of living, the way of being, the way of engaging. And everything has sort of the same rules. Now, when we read through this, we have to understand this is for us. And this, from our perspective, we have to look at it from our perspective. We have to look at whatever we read from our perspective. Whatever we look at, whatever we're experiencing right now, we have to remember we're the one experiencing this. It was many, many years ago, I used to get really frustrated at people when they would say, it's a human experience. And I'm like, when someone says that, they're trying to make something that cannot be lumped in together, right? Your experience and my experience are not the same. Yes, we may both experience car crashes, and we may both, when we experience those car crashes, not be able to express ourselves or explain what they are because we're in shock or we're in frustration or whatever. All of those words mean specific things, but we are having a very specific experience that has nothing to do with the experience the person in the other car is having or the experience that another person that had an accident is having. Yes, we might be able to use some words that are similar. Yes, we might be able to express things that may seem like they're the same. But our experience is very, very unique. And when we can look at our experience, we learn about ourselves. We learn about what is it that's happening with us. Many of you may have heard me talk about pre-karmic buffet. And I'm going to talk a little bit about it today. Just because I haven't talked about it in a while, and it's a good way of understanding how my experience is unique. And your experience is unique, and everybody's experience is wholly unique. So pre-karmic buffet, and this is just a way of seeing it. This is just kind of a parable on the way of seeing what life is. And pre-karmic buffet is before we are directed to the life that we're going to lead, before we're directed to the body that we're going to live, as a soul, pre-karmic. We have this buffet that we enter. We'll just use the word God. God and I enter this buffet. And we start scooping all of this food out onto our plates. We get a plate and we go, oh my God, this is all going to be so delicious. I've never tasted anything before. I don't know what any of this tastes like, but it all looks so good. It all looks so amazing. And, and you have all these foods. You got salads and soups and entrees and vegetables and desserts and all sorts of things. And it's all piled up, and you can go through and you can choose all of these delicious experiences. And they all have labels in front of it, but you don't know what any of those labels mean because you've never done anything like this before. So you look at the labels and you say, oh, that sounds good. I'll try a little bit of that. Oh, this looks good. I don't know. You go back to your table with with all your plates kind of piled high with all of this food and stuff. And you sit down. And one of the problems with buffets is that they're all you can eat. So you do pile it high. It's like when you go into a thing, it's just like, I want to make sure I get my money's worth, right? It's very, very, it's not like, oh, it's just like, I'm just going to eat. Like, your stomach is the size of your fist. You're not going to eat that much food when you're paying X. You want to make sure that you get your money's worth or whatever, right? So you're piling it up and you're like, I'm going to try all of these amazing things. And then God comes back and he looks at your plate and he looks at all these things and he says, okay, this is how you've arranged your plates. You got this food next to this food, next to this food. And all those labels that you passed by, they're all experiences. They're all they're all traumas. They're all sorts of things to experience, right? There's global warming is a big entree right now. Racism is an entree. And then, you have hate. And you have, fascism is an entree. And you have abuse. And you have physical abuse and mental abuse, and you got ADHD, and you got all of these experiences that you can have. And it's all lined on your plate. You don't know what they mean. But you're there and you're like, okay, this is going to be amazing. You're sitting here saying, this is going to be delicious. I can't wait to just sink my teeth into these things. And as you do, some of those things are going to be bitter. Some of those things you're going to not like at all. This is your plate. And you're going to, like, your life, and maybe multiple lives, you're going to be going through this plate. Like yesterday, I believe I spoke about, souls coming into the body later in life, the older the soul is. And then those pre-karmic buffet, when you go through a pre-karmic buffet, like, it may take multiple lifetimes to get through a plate. And as you do that, you get smarter. You say, okay, I'm not going to take so much this time. Your fourth time to Old Country Buffet, you're like, oh, wait, let me just take a little bit of the macaroni and cheese rather than a whole bowl full or whatever. And as we're going through our life, like, the point is to try and find out how delicious this is. Yeah, I know experiencing some of these things in life is really difficult. Experiencing any sort of trespass against us, is experiencing any sort of abuse, experiencing any sort of trauma. Those things are terrible, and I regret that anyone has to go through those things. But when we go through them, like with my MS, right? Like, there's nothing I can do. It's here, and I'm living with it, and it's okay. Just like with anybody else, and this is part of your experience. Now, did I pick up MS? Maybe not, but maybe I picked up fear. And because I didn't learn lessons, the lessons came, I cleared off my plate, and that's all that's left. And it's like, well, here you get to have it through MS and maybe other things. Who knows what it's eliciting within me, right? But this is something that I have, that is a part of my life, obviously. And so I get to experience this, no matter what it is. All right. So what we do on Tao of the Day is I invite you up to pick a number between 1 and 81. The Tao Te Ching consists of 81 chapters, and I use them as a sort of oracle. So I'll ask you, what's going on with you these days? What's going on in your life? What's going on in your mind? What's a dominating theme going on with you right now? And then I'll ask you to pick a number. And then we will look at that number. And I have a random number generator if you'd like to use that as well. I looked at the random number generator this morning and got number 30. We can look at it from the perspective of pre-karmic buffet and what we were talking about. Not a whole lot is going on in my life these days. I've just been quiet recently, and it's been nice, to be quite honest. All right, number 30 is entitled Tao Does Not Dominate. Tao does not dominate. Governing, in any capacity, when led by Tao, doesn't use force to gain power. Every force applied will suffer an equal counterforce. So violence, however it is intended, will always rebound upon itself. Where armies march, briers grow, and in their wake follows hunger and villainy. Skillful in what she does, the master achieves her goal and stops, neither forcing nor manipulating further. She knows that dominating goes counter to Tao, and whatever opposes Tao will certainly die early. Dominating is at the key here. It's sort of the linchpin of the whole thing. Tao does not dominate. And we don't really talk about dominating directly. It says Tao doesn't use force to gain power. Of course, if you did use force to gain power, it can be said that you are dominating. Every force applied will suffer an equal counterforce. So violence, however it is intended, will always rebound upon itself. And same thing with all sorts of stuff, right? Like weakness or anger, however it is intended, even if you use it to protect yourself, well, it's going to rebound upon itself. So you don't put it out in the world. If somebody does something to you, sometimes it's, this is the whole turn the other cheek thing. For you, the world isn't going to necessarily do that. And if you try and dominate someone who's trying to dominate you, well, then you find yourself in a situation that is untenable. From the standpoint of pre-karmic buffet, if you have something going on with you, like me and my MS, right? That's my experience. And if I get angry, violent, or I want to do something with that MS, I want to damn that MS or whatever it is, right? That's going to create energy within myself that is going to, be used by my MS to improve its life. My MS has a life. It's an entity that lives within me, and I have to have a relationship with it. One way or another, I have to have a relationship with this disease. As I have a diagnosis of MS, so I have to kind of come to terms with it's an entity. It's been given life by Tao. I've been given life by Tao. We are both being sustained by Tao as part of the gift of the other's life, right? MS is being sustained as part of the gift of my life. So violence, however it is intended, will always rebound upon oneself. I will be violent to it. It will be violent to me. That's not the direction that I want to go. Where armies march, briers grow. In their wake follows hunger and villainy. This is like if I send my armies out to attack my MS, well, then my body becomes barren, right? My body becomes a wasteland where hunger and villainy will propagate. Now, it goes into this section that talks about what the master does. It says, skillful in what she does, the master achieves her goal and stops. Now, we want to look at what is your goal? Right? What is the goal of the master? Well, the master's goal is to be present, right? With everything. And allow other things to be as they are. She does her thing, and everything else will do theirs. As we go through each and every one of these, remember, this doesn't stand alone. This is part of 80 other chapters, right? The master achieves her goal and stops. And if we were to look at the verse directly in front of it, number 29, the title of 29 is Make the World a Better You. And the master allows all things to be as they are. She doesn't want to control them. She simply lets them do what she does. She also does what she does, staying centered to Tao. That's the end of number 29. And when we look at number 30, and we say the master achieves her goal and then stops. Well, what's her goal? Well, if we look at 29, it says she doesn't want to control other things. She simply lets them do what they do. She also does what she does, staying centered in Tao. So she does what she does. What is her goal? Her goal is going to be to do what she does. And then stops. Neither forcing nor manipulating further. She knows that dominating goes counter to Tao. So she's going to do what she does. And if what she does doesn't do anything to somebody else's actions, they don't inspire other people's actions, they don't she's not going to try and manipulate people further into being what she wants them to be. Because again, if we look at 29, she doesn't want to control them. She simply lets them do what they do. And as she does what she does, that is going to lead other people because she is an inspiration. And if her actions fail to inspire somebody, well, she's not going to try and dominate any further. Because domination goes counter to Tao, and whatever opposes Tao will certainly die early. And the thing is those things are so short-lived. Anything that's going counter to Tao is short-lived, especially when it goes counter to Tao in an overt, obvious manner. Tao steps in fairly quickly. Now, that is, in the history of the universe, that's quickly, you may experience quickly as multiple lifetimes, or multiple generations, but sometimes that's what's needed. But you don't dominate, because any force will equal a counterforce. I sometimes talk with people, and when I have a client, I have them put their hand up, and I push against their hand. As soon as I do, they push right back. It's like, that's that counterforce. Lo, how are you today?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm good. Have you slept yet?
No. No.
Well, good morning either way.
Good morning. I did try to sleep. It was funny because I felt really tired really early for me. It was like 11 o'clock, and I'm like, oh, gotta go to bed. I'm tired. I'm achy because of the snow, and I have neuropathy, and the weather really
Mm,
bothers my joints when it changes suddenly. And we were having a warm front for, Ohio in this time of year.
all
Not
right.
to say that it was very warm, but like I woke up this morning and I was like, man, my bones hurt, like my hips hurt, my knees hurt. And my husband was like, "Oh, it snowed last night." And I was like, "I can feel it." My superpower is my joints ache with the weather.
I know the weather. Lock me in a room and I'll tell you the barometric pressure.
Oh yeah, my right elbow's bothering me. It's gonna storm later.
Make sure you bring your galoshes. It's like that's
Actually,
good. Like as a mom, you're just kind of like, wear your snow boots. It's like, but it's not snowing. It will.
my kids won't wear their stupid. I can't even get my kids to wear coats. It used to
No.
be too. It used to be too that they would wear hoodies, and I was like, okay, like everybody's freaking out, and they're like, you're kids these days, and blah blah blah. And I'm like, there's scientific fact that kids don't feel the cold the way that adults do, and I was like, quite honestly, they're like walking into school and walking out of school into a car. If they don't want to wear a coat, I don't really care. All that, it's not worth the argument to me. So I
Right.
was like, at least they'll wear hoodies. And now suddenly hoodies aren't cool. And I'm
They're
like, we're
not.
wearing t-shirts and shorts, and it's freaking snowing.
You know, there's so little consequence these days, in children's experience, especially if they grow up in a city or a suburb where it's like you said, you leave the car and then you're in school. Now, if they're in their t-shirt and shorts and they can't get picked up by you and they miss the bus or whatever, and then they have to stand outside and wait for you, and then your car breaks down and they're out there and the school is closed, and then they lose their fingers because of frostbite. That's like that's a consequence that they have no idea that could happen, because we have that we have local stability. Like there is stability. Like mom's going to pick me up after school, and they know it. That not happening is so outside of their realm of understanding. The fact that they may, like I know my car is going to make it when I drive to Chicago, and it's only a 30-minute drive or whatever to get to downtown or whatnot. But when it's cold, I bring an extra hoodie or extra clothes and put it in, especially in the winter, just in case I'm going to get stuck or my car breaks down or something, because I have that experience. I have the experience that, this might happen. So I should be prepared. But I don't think kids have that idea because there's so much local stability. Like, and they're right. They can always step inside a Dunkin' Donuts or a McDonald's or something and warm up, and they'll be safe. So, but if
Well,
those
knowing
things
my
close
kids'
down,
school, they wouldn't ever let them come home. Like they wouldn't walk to school with kids still there. Um, they would call me. And actually, I worked with kids, and we had to call parents, and we had to threaten parents, like,
that's good.
uh,
That's good.
pick up at 5 o'clock, and you're not here, and if you're more than 30 minutes late, we have to call CPS because that's our policy. And
Yeah.
a lot of people wanted to be like, that's super harsh. And it's like, well, we would usually wait until a parent made it, like we understand things happen, but if a
Yeah.
parent is consistently, half an hour late, that's an hour that I wasn't planning on spending there having to supervise, and like my nonprofit had to pay me, and you know
Right.
So we would implement the whole, like, we're going to have to call Child Protective Services for abandonment if you don't get here because it's time and you know this.
Right. Yeah, yeah. And back in the day that because things were different, people would just be like, "All right, you good?" They ask a 5-year-old, "You good?" And it's like, "Yeah, my mom's coming. Okay, I'm gonna leave now." Like, like that would happen, and then the kid would kind of be alone.
Oh, I know. It's
And there were
funny.
no phones, and there were no, back in the day. So like, and I know there have been times where I was expected to be somewhere, and then I've gotten hit by a car or something unexpected happened, and then I'm in the hospital, in which like I'm unresponsive in the hospital. I can't answer my phone or whatever, as I'm getting an X-ray and other things like that. So like anything can happen. Not that we want to put that in the universe, but
No, it is funny because my mom gave me such a hard time with my kids. Like, we would go into a store and I would let my kid like 5 feet away from me, like browse at something, and I had him on my radar out of the corner of my eye. That's not to say nothing could happen, but like I tell
no.
people, like accidents are accidents because you don't expect them to happen. You can't prepare for an accident. You can't, because what's gonna happen is you're gonna have an accident for the thing you didn't prepare for. Um, but she would give me a super hard time. And one time, my oldest, for some reason, was like, "Yeah, mommy and daddy, we all went to a hotel and they left me in the room overnight and they went out." And my mom's like, "Did you do that?" And I was like, "Mom, does that sound like something?" No, I was like, I have no idea where he got that from. We haven't even been to a hotel room. Like, man, like, but she gave us a hard time. She gave me such a hard time about it. And I was like, "Mom, you did not know where we were." Like, we ran feral. You did not know if we had eaten. You did not know if we were dead. I did get hit by a car when I was in, the third grade because I was biking up to McDonald's with a friend of mine. I was like, "You weren't there. You had no idea what happened." Like, and you're freaking out because I'm letting my kid walk 5 feet away from me. Like, he'll be all right. Trust me.
Yeah. I'm glad I don't have the children. I don't know that I think I'd be a fine father, but I don't think, like I would be a fine father now, but I'm already I'm beyond the age of wanting to raise a child.
Well, yeah, I had that. Somebody was like, "Oh, do you think you'll have more kids?" And I was like, "Nope, I'm done." Like, I had my kids young. I do wish sometimes, especially now, that my friends my age are either starting to have kids or they have little kids, and I'm like, I didn't have anybody when I was raising my babies because all my friends were out being, 20-year-olds, and then I'm like, now I have all this free time, and it's like, you can't have a conversation because now you're the one dealing with this 3-year-old
Right?
screaming
Yeah.
in your ear. Like, it's like, God damn it, I have much time to all of this. Like, I did not plan very well, but no, it's good. It's the way it's supposed to be, and like I was like, I've raised my babies. I'm almost free. Couldn't imagine. I have a friend who had kids super young, like while she was still in high school, and her oldest daughter was graduating from high school, and her youngest son was a freshman, and she had a newborn, and I was just like, I try really hard not to judge other people's lives when they make decisions that I would not make. But that one was really hard for me. I was like,
Right.
why? Why
Why
would
did you
you
do
do that?
that?
Going back to diapers, you were done. I can't. I don't know. but better her than me, because
That's right.
but no, life has been okay-ish. My husband is home.
Good.
Yeah, I mean, it's all right.
I mean, for him, it's good, you know.
I mean, for him, it's good until I want to beat him up. It has a stick, but I would never do that because now it's
Yeah.
premeditated. Um,
And recorded. Pick a number for me.
I was thinking about this earlier, and I thought 74.
74. Don't cut yourself. This
You
is
guys
pretty
think I
good.
was working with my rapier earlier?
People are not naturally afraid to die. It is what we are born to do. Fear of death is important if you want to rule over people. However, you must artificially instill this fear into their hearts. To accomplish this, you kill as an example to control the masses. Since the beginning of time, there has been one executioner. Trying to take its place will lead to nothing good. As a novice with a master carpenter's tools, you're going to cut yourself. You know, and this, of course, it's hopefully not about murder, but, but it is about everything. It's like everybody, it's not, people are not afraid to live. Like really live as they are. People are not born with a fear of who they are, of not being able to do the right thing. And then we get that instilled in our hearts because our parents and the school system and the economic system punish us as we go along. We're not naturally afraid of anything. This is the children go outside in T-shirt and shorts without fear of the cold, and then we instill that fear within their heart. We instill that fear within them artificially. To accomplish this, and as it says here, to accomplish this, we kill as an example to control the masses. But what we do is we're killing their faith in themselves. We're saying, you're going to hurt yourself. If like just like my story about like, if something happens, you're going to be cold. If something happens, you're going to freeze. If something happens, then I am instilling fear in the hearts of others, and they're living under the influence of that fear. Since the beginning of time, there has been one, it says here executioner, but we can really look at it as there's been one teacher. And that teacher's experience. Trying to take the place of experience will lead to nothing good. As a novice, I would be the novice teacher with the tools of the master karma, with the tools of Tao, with the tools of experience of the life of somebody and how they process that experience. I am going to end up hurting myself and the people that I care about. Thoughts?
I just think it's an interesting topic to come up. I think it's especially interesting the way you worded it. Especially because I have a friend who's in the hospital right now, and she's having some testing done. She actually is being tested for MS. And I was trying to tell her about my experience, hoping that it would make her feel a little better, because they tested me as well when I lost the ability to walk. And I was trying to tell her, like, because, hold on, I'm going to have to jump back in.
Yeah, jump back in. And Rosa, I'm going to be with you in just 1 second. We're going to bring up Lo. We're going to have her tell her story, and then we're going to come right to you. So if you can hang out, please do.
I'll be quick. Yeah, I have a friend, and I was just trying to tell her my experience, and I was trying to do it with the intent to alleviate some of her worry or fear. And she was talking about how she has to get a lumbar puncture tomorrow, and I don't think they're that bad. They're not what I would want to do on any day. You know, I'm never going to be like, sign me up for one of those bad boys, but they aren't as bad as I was expecting. And so I was trying to tell her, I was like, oh, well, you know, they numb you. And honestly, I was like, the numbing part hurts the worst, but I was trying to relay that it hurts, but it doesn't linger. Like, it's just, the way it was described to me was as a bee sting, and it didn't feel that way to me. I'm sure you know, but you know, it didn't.
I've never had a puncture. I've never had a lumbar puncture. They just found lesions and diagnosed me. That's why I say I have a diagnosis, and I try not to address it as my MS, because they diagnosed me as MS, but they never did the lumbar puncture.
Okay. It's not
Spinal
that.
tap or whatever.
Yeah, I've had 3.
For all your children, or?
Well, if you include my children, I've had 5.
Oh, wow. Okay, well, there you have it.
They weren't sure. When I lost the ability to walk, they really had, and they still don't really have much of an idea of what caused it. And it was a little hilarious, because now I think it's hilarious. Then I was very, very frustrated. But everybody didn't believe me that I couldn't walk. So, like, you know, a couple of times I had to go back to the hospital. In order to do so, I had to have the ambulance come and get me. And they'd be like, oh, you know, just stand and swivel onto the seat. And I'm like, you don't understand. I can't stand.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, I can't. If I put pressure on my legs, they will not hold me up. And every time it happened to me with nurses in the hospital, like, it happened to me one epic time. I really trusted this nurse. She's like, we've got you. I've got, you know, she was there. She was an OT therapist. She had a spotter for me. I was like, okay, I'll try it. I'm sure. Because she's like, I know you can do it. And, you know, like, I got pumped up and I was like, yeah, I can do it. I'm going to show her. And I did it so hard and so fast. Anyway, so yeah, that's why I've had so many. But I was like, the actual puncture doesn't hurt. The numbing, and I wouldn't even say it hurts, because it is very tolerable pain. And it doesn't really linger around either. So I was trying to tell her that, but like, she just took it as, oh, you know, when I said, oh, it's the numbing part that hurts, she took that word and ran with it.
Yep. And everybody will. Yep, that's the same.
Yeah. And it's kind of what you're talking about here, and just with so many other things in my life as well. Like, obviously I have control issues, and I try to control things, and I try to control the outcome, or I try to figure out so I can plan.
Yep.
And lately anymore, I'm just finding that I can't plan, and I'm getting very frustrated over it, and then getting frustrated at myself because I know the answer. I just don't want to know it.
Right. You don't want to accept it, because, you know, like, and that's what this is really saying. Like, by not accepting it, you're going to cut yourself. You know, like, you're going to cut yourself really just means you're going to have an outcome that you're not looking for. You know, that you're not, you know, like, whether it's with your friend and her running with that idea of her, like, you know, if you say, well, you're going to have your experience and I'm going to be here for you either way. I've had them. I haven't experienced them as being too bad. Actually, it's pretty, you know, I've had a number of them, you know, and so, you know, you can say something like that, but it's always helpful when we can talk from our experience. We can always just say, hey, this is the experience that I had, you know, rather than trying to make sure that other people understand the experience that they're going to have. because you don't know what experience they're going to have.
Exactly. And that's exactly, I was like, oh crap, that was not my intention. I did not mean to make you more, I meant to say that.
And that's, like that goes back to the first verse of the Tao, which like words in particular, they cannot express Tao. Like everything that or comforting words are never true, right? Like the idea that, let me see if I can find it. I believe it's number 1. Or in particular, comforting words are never true. No, it's not number 1. But it says, true words aren't, comforting words aren't true. True words may not sound comforting. So you're telling her your truth, but you're doing it in order to do something, in order to comfort. Where it's like, there may be words, like when you're further in touch with and in love with yourself and in all the things that you will be inspired to say. And let's not forget, your experience is yours, her experience is hers. You created this experience, and she attracted this experience, and you attracted this experience, and she was there for you to create this experience. And that makes you more conscious about things about yourself. Remember, you're both having specific experiences. She may not actually be afraid, but you may have picked up on the idea that she's afraid. Maybe she is. And maybe she is just having her experience, which is something maybe to do with medical stuff. Maybe it's like she's afraid because she's in this space of the unknown. It doesn't sound like they found out a whole lot with your spinal taps. Did they?
No, they ruled out MS. They still think I
ALS, other things like that.
Yeah, they still think I might have had Guillain-Barré. That was back and forth on whether.
See, and so that's an interesting thing, right? Like you look at this as being almost inconsequential. Like nothing bad came from my spinal taps, and so that could, deep in your subconscious, be something where it's just like, oh, nothing bad's going to come of this. But she is in a space that is very much in the unknown. And because she is in the unknown, her experience is going to be widely different than yours. And you are in the unknown too, but all of the spinal taps that you've had, all of the experiences that you've had, led you to have a certain understanding of what they are and what they do. And
yes and no. I mean, part of it is that I'm still in an area of unknown. Since we don't know what caused it, is it going to be back?
But the spinal taps were inconsequential in figuring that out, and that's what I mean. Of course, you are still in the unknown, but you're walking around again. I mean, I think.
Well, yeah, that was, I had to, I'm pretty proud of that fact. I had to teach myself how to walk again, and I worked really hard, and I went to an amazing hospital, so they were really amazing. But yeah, I mean, my main point is just that I tried to do something that I thought would be comforting and would have been comforting to me, because like I said, I'm a knowledge person. I like to hear what is going on and what other people's experiences are. She is more Christian, spiritual-esque, and what turned out to comfort her more is I was just like, oh, well, I'll go to my home group and I'll ask them to keep you in their thoughts and prayers, and she liked that a lot better because that just fit her better. But I was thinking about me, and I was thinking about what would help me, and I think that's everybody's go-to. So I give myself a little bit of a pass, but it's definitely something. It is the season of my life that I am working really hard on trying to figure out how to walk this line of letting other people have their needs while still having mine put out there. And it's up to other people whether or not they want to meet my needs, but then trying to figure out what to do if and when they don't, just because that basically was something that wasn't taught to me as a child, and it's something that at almost 40 years old I'm learning. So
yeah, like it's yeah, don't cut yourself.
I try not to, but I do have some razor work right here, so
yeah.
no promises. I'm very impressed I have not cut myself at all yet, which means I'm definitely due to take out a chunk of my hand here. Not that I want to
don't you're tempting fate.
Maybe I'm tempting fate by being like, I don't know. No.
Yeah, you're right. I mean, maybe you're not, but maybe you are. And it's always good. Like, it's always good to just kind of like, let's see what happens. Let's without predicting, without trying to tell the story too much. That's a thing that I was really thinking about yesterday a lot. This idea of telling the story. We tell the story all the time, and really, we're just right here, right now. And yes, we have all of these experiences and all of these brains and all of these intelligences and all of these things that we can be here with, but we don't have to tell the story. We don't have to tell the story about what's going to happen. We don't have to tell the story about how it took place. We don't have to tell the story about what someone else is going through, what they're thinking, what they're feeling. We can just, whatever it is, have this experience.
I'm just really bad at not guessing or trying to guess and being wrong quite a bit. So you think I would have learned my lesson?
It is nice. It's nice to be able to be wrong. Because there's so much less stress on us.
And I should be the least stressed person in the world. All right, I will let you talk to Rosa. If she's
Rosa dropped out, but that's why I was just kind of. But I appreciate you coming back up and chatting with me about 74. Thank you so much.
You're so welcome. I hope you have. I'm gonna try to get my.
You hope I have a what now? You hope I have a what now?
I said I hope you have a good day. I'm gonna try to go get my day nap, I think is what I meant to say.
Okay, but I don't know exactly what you said, but I'm glad you're gonna go get a nap, relax, and to get and then pick up a razor.
I'm not picking up a razor right now. You make me sound so tragic.
All right, you have a wonderful day, hon.
Yes. Okay. Goodbye.
Bye-bye. Okay. Well, I know Rosa was in the queue. She's not anymore. So if anybody wants to come up and pick a number, we read number 30 and number 74. 74 is such a nice verse. 74, once again, I'll go ahead and read it again. Don't cut yourself. People are not naturally afraid to die. It is what we are born to do. Like, I love the way that starts. Because it really puts things in a perspective. What we're born to do is die. Now, that doesn't mean that life doesn't have any, like, we shouldn't, this isn't the point. You're not looking for that. But that is the ultimate, experience in life, is to let it go, is to see that this was here for us to just embrace. This was here for us to just experience. People are not naturally afraid to die. It is what we were born to do. Now, a lot of people might say, well, then why do you have fear? Why do you have of being attacked? All these kinds of things. Well, that's because you're not, it's not that you're afraid to die, but you want to live. You have a desire to live. You're not afraid to die. Dying is part of that living. But survival, you want to survive so that you can continue having these experiences. And then, yes, when it's time to die, it's like they say that drowning is one of the most peaceful ways to die. I don't know if that's true. Obviously, I've not experienced it. But it's because, you surrender to it. It's the idea that you surrender to it and you can die in peace, So people are not naturally afraid to die. It is what we are born to do. Fear of death is important if you want to rule over people. And fear is important if you want to rule over people. And the reason that you use fear of death instead of fear of being poor is some people are going to be fine being poor. Some people are going to be fine not being loved. Some people are going to be fine out on their own. So you can't use the same thing, the same tactics for everybody, because everybody's a little different. Everybody is going to have a different experience. And if you want to control over people, if you want to rule over people, you have to get them all afraid of the same thing. And then there will be people, and we've spoken to people. I mean, when I went in to get my diagnosis of MS, I thought I was going to die and everything was fine. When it hit me like a ton of bricks when they told me, oh no, now you're going to live, but you might live without the ability to walk. I was like, oh, that's a different thing. Dying, I'm okay with. But living with these limitations, I wasn't. And then I had to become okay with it. And then that was it. Like I thought I was done. I was like, oh well, I'm good with dying. But it's like, no. You have to be good with everything. So fear of death is important if you want to rule over people, because death is the one thing we're all going to face. However, you must artificially instill this fear into their hearts, to the hearts of the people that you want to rule over. You have to instill this fear into them. To accomplish this, you kill as an example to control the masses. So, we do this in children. We embarrass children. We tell them that they're wrong. We tell them that they're in trouble. We beat our kids, other things like that. If that happens, it's just like, okay, now there's this general fear. You're going to fail and be left behind, and that's going to be embarrassing for you. And if you're embarrassed and you can't keep up with your classmates, then that's what gets you to do your homework. That's what gets you, so we artificially instill these fears into the hearts of our children, into the hearts of our employees, into the hearts of our citizenry, right? We artificially instill fears into their heart by killing their soul, by killing their dreams, by putting them down, by doing all of these things to get them to be afraid. Oh, Johnny, it has been a while since we've talked.
Hey,
Johnny, my friend, how are you, man?
I'm good, Martin, John. It's really good to talk to you again. And yes, it has been a little while. It's been a minute.
It has been. And like, yeah, it's good to be connected.
Yeah, absolutely. I joined a little late, but I did catch some of what you were saying about the pre-karmic buffet. And I just wanted to circle back to that a little. Because, it's a really interesting idea, and so I really like your idea of the pre-karmic buffet, and I was thinking about, because I know people talk about contracts and agreement and themes, and I was thinking that maybe you mentioned that perhaps MS has allowed you to explore the theme of fear, and I was wondering, because obviously we all come into this life to explore various themes, and I was wondering if by experiencing that theme, if you transform it, do you then embrace the opposite of it, if you like? So if for example, with fear, would you then end up embracing courage as you transform fear?
Well, so that's dualistic, right? So so I just want to point out that that's dualistic first.
Okay. Sure. Yeah,
so it's all in identifying, right? Like and in speaking, I have to speak with words. And so those things come in. So yes, in a sense, you will explore its opposite, but just like fear doesn't exist, courage doesn't exist, right? And so you get to experience, you have the experience of having MS. Because when I got my diagnosis, I was afraid of that. And it didn't take me long to realize how silly it was to be afraid of, one, something that hasn't happened yet. And I mean, I was having experiences of that sort of happening, and that may be forever. But I knew somewhere inside that I was going to get better from that. And I don't know, like inside myself, anywhere in my psyche, that I am going to ever not be able to walk. It doesn't feel like that's true, but it may very well be.
Yeah.
When I got my diagnosis, I went into the state of, oh my God, burp, 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 and all the story.
Yeah, sure.
Right. And then I stopped and I was just like, what are you doing? Well, this is ridiculous what you're doing here. You know, one, you are here. You got this diagnosis. Okay. Everything's fine. Nothing changed between the time before the doctor came in and when the doctor left. Nothing changed except I was given information. That's a measurement. That measurement now kind of gets me involved in the manifestation of, so to speak, you know, and now I'm in this dualistic idea of like, I'm afraid. And I did kind of talk about it from the standpoint of it might be fear. It could be all sorts of things, you know, and fear, once again, is just a word to kind of be a stand-in for the experience, one slight experience that I'm having, because it can also be about my ability to grasp at things, because it took my motor function, you know, from my right side away, and it took my, you know, temperature sensation. And so it could be all sorts of things. So I don't want to lean in. It was funny because when I said fear this morning, something in my head went, you know, I'm not super comfortable with the fact that I said that, right? Okay. Like it just, something came into my mind and said, although it's true, I have to deal with the fear of not having, but there was something in my mind that said, that's not really what I mean, but there's no other word for it, and there's no other way of expressing it. And so who knows why I'm experiencing. My MS is here to help me experience the deliciousness of something that's on my plate. Now, I can either say, no, that's bitter. I don't like it. Or I can say, what is delicious about this?
Yeah, I guess. Yeah, I probably wouldn't I wouldn't use the word. I'm not in a place where I can use the term delicious, but I do understand it.
It's just a question about like, what is it? Like, it's not about defining it as delicious.
Yeah.
Because, like, yes, it's bitter. Yes, it has these flavors. It has this experience, and I have this thing. And I don't know, everything about your situation, especially today, because it's been 6 months or so since we've talked. But it is, it is something that you're experiencing. Yeah. And no experience is without its own flavor.
Yeah. I guess I have the viewpoint that the experiences are there to teach me something. And maybe that's right and maybe that's wrong. I don't know. And maybe...
I agree with that.
Yeah.
And
sorry.
Go on. No, please.
That's kind of the viewpoint I take. So even with the diagnoses I've been given, and I was thinking about the idea of themes, really, because certain things have happened. I've had a serious car accident at one point, but I don't know if I actually agreed to the car accident or I just agreed to explore a theme. And the car accident came about because that was an opportunity for me to explore that theme through the choices I'd made. So I guess I'm looking, and I've not been the best student, so I haven't necessarily learned my lessons early in life. So they've circled back to me.
So I would ask, about the car accident. I was just like, well, if I were to ask you, if you could describe to me what happened, just like really briefly, like, was somebody not paying attention? Was someone, what was the sort of, in your mind, what was at the core of the accident? Why did it happen?
There was nobody else involved. It was just me. I was rushing. I'd worked a 6-day week. I was rushing to get to a friend's birthday party. I missed.
So I would stop there. I would talk about this as responsibility. Like everything that you've already said, right? Like no one else is involved. That means you're the responsible party. You worked all this time. All of that revolves around responsibility because you are responsible for, or you are being looked for. And then you were trying to get to someone's birthday party. Like you want to be, you want to be seen as supportive or whatever. So this all already has a theme of responsibility. This already has a theme that would rely on you understanding the world from a certain perspective.
Yes.
And then I would look at your situation with medical stuff, and I would say, oh, okay, well, that all fits because you didn't trust yourself in making your own decision. You trusted others. And then the people that were responsible didn't do a good job. So all of a sudden, everything kind of falls into one sort of thing.
Responsibility.
Well, that's the word I would put on it. But I mean, I would look at it for yourself and look at all of that. I mean, and it's important to listen to ourselves. The first 3 things you said revolved around the same theme, and I'm just using that as your word, revolved around the same sort of thing. Whether it was you were the responsible one or someone else was the responsible one or this or that or whatever, like all of that kind of revolves around the same thing. And those are the first 3 things you said when I asked you about an accident.
Yeah.
Right? So, if you look at the accident as a separate thing, if you look at the accident as as being the victim of the accident, well then, or the victim of malpractice, or the victim of whatever, you're just a passenger. But you're not just a passenger in your life. You are the only one that's here. So when you start talking about the idea of like pre-karmic buffet, and when you start talking about like, well, this experience is here to teach me something. Yeah, it's not here to teach you that you're a victim. So you don't look at the accident. You look at how you perceive and how you experienced the accident. You experienced it. And I stopped you because you can go on forever telling a stupid story.
Yeah, sure.
You know, but all I want to know is how are you perceiving it? You're perceiving it as you're the responsible one. You were responsible by doing this, and you're responsible to getting somewhere. And then I'm like, oh, well, here you go. Like, whether or not it's responsible, right? Whether or not that's the word you would use, I look at it from this kind of, 10,000 feet up, and I kind of look down and I say, oh, this isn't about the accident, and it's not about the birthday, and it's not about you working. Bring all those experiences together, and what is the experience Johnny's having? Well, Johnny's having an experience that, he can't do everything, but he is expected to for some reason. He believes he's expected to do everything.
Yes, absolutely. That's that definitely was some of the learning that came out of that, and I partly understood that in hindsight, although I didn't use the word, as you say, responsibility. It is, that is a good word to use.
Yeah, maybe, and you may find in other words. This is why I talk about iteration. When I work with clients, we try and find something to build off of. And if responsibility is a good word for you to explore your experience with responsibility, when did it start? When's the first time you were given responsibilities? What are the responsibilities you believed you had and couldn't control? What would, as you start to explore those things, you're going to be like, oh, wait, maybe it's not responsibility. Maybe it's this, or maybe it is responsibility. And it has all this to do with all of these things that I carried with me from, my upbringing, or from, going to school and dropping out, or ... and all of these other things. And then all of a sudden it's just like, oh, there's shame, and there's frustration, and there's all of these things that I can't live up to, and all of this. And now we're starting to get somewhere. Now we're starting to see that one thing leads to another, and then we iterate and slowly iterate. And then we say, oh, okay, let me look at this situation. This frustrated me the other day. Does that fit in? And we'll say, oh man, here it is again, and again, and again, and again. And then, we start to bring awareness to all of that. And then responsibility gets put on a back burner because, well, not back burner. We deal with it. We take it off the fire, right? But then we realize that the stove is still cooking other stuff. And then we start finding those other things. And those other things start to come to the surface because we've gotten rid of the mask that masked it, like the big pot right in front. Now we have all the little saucepans and stuff of trauma that we have to continue to go through, and then we eventually just keep taking stuff off the stove.
Yeah, no, that's a really great way of looking at it. I hadn't really thought about it in sort of terms of iterations, but that makes a lot of sense. I realise my time's about to run out, so
come back up if you can.
Yes, I can. Absolutely.
Yeah, and then we'll pick a number, and then we'll explore that number through the conversation that we just had. Just because it's hard, and it's we have to be able to see ourselves and not ourselves as the victim or anything like that, but see where we're coming from and how we're perceiving the world and how we're experiencing our life.
Absolutely. Thank you, Martin John. I had a number before I came up, but this seems to have gone in a very different direction now. So I'm going to spin the wheel, so to speak. And could I use your random number generator?
Absolutely. Number 50. Number 50 is awareness of death. Every being is entrusted with life for a time. However, it is only a prelude to death. Some live as optimists, embracing life. Others live as pessimists, embracing death. Some even live in preservation, passively living, advancing towards death. The master lives aware of her appointment with death. This brings her to knowing real life. She cannot be harmed by rhinoceros or man. Her movements flow from her being. She cannot be fooled by illusion or hallucination. Her actions flow from her being. She has freed herself of all separateness, even the distinction between life and death. When we started talking, I talked about the idea of, fear and courage as being duality. And this piece kind of ends with and is pointing to there is no duality. There is no separateness. Like when it talks about some live as optimists embracing life, that may seem like the right way to go about it, especially when others live as pessimists embracing death. Some even live as in preservation, passively living, advancing towards death. The thing is those are part of a dualistic understanding of the world. They're part of this is a measurement. You are measured as an optimist, you're measured as a pessimist, or you're measured as a preservationist, right? But the thing is it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter how you decide to live your life. You've decided to live your life that way because of certain experiences that you've had in life. You're like, oh, I better not go outside of the box, because if I go outside of the box, I'm going to be shut down. I'm going to be punished. No, I better not be caged in, because if I'm being caged in, I'm going to be suppressed. And I can't be suppressed. And some are like, I'm just going to do what I'm told to do because I don't have a voice. And none of those ways are right. But in every situation, one of those ways may rise to the surface as being the correct answer to what you're experiencing right now. There is no right way to go about what you're doing and what you're facing. You just face it and then experience that and then learn from that experience. You're being entrusted with life for a time. However, it is only a prelude to death. All of this that you're experiencing, all of this that you struggle with and all of that, it's just driving you towards death. It doesn't really matter. It's like what you're going to end up in the same place. So how do you want to live your life?
Yeah. And you were talking about this earlier on, because of some of the experiences I've had and because of some of the knowledge I have now, I'm a lot less afraid of dying, and I'm a lot less afraid of death. And I'm more actually afraid of not living or not living or making something of this opportunity.
Right.
That tends to be more my focus.
And that's iteration, right? So the next lines, right? The master lives aware of her appointment with death. This is where you are. You're aware of your appointment with death. You know you're going to die. This brings her to knowing real life. This brings her to knowing real life. It doesn't just happen. It brings you to understanding real life. What is real life like? That is living. That isn't just being entertained. That isn't being pacified. That isn't being, just like, oh, this is a delicious meal and that's what's important. No. You know that this is forfeit. You know that this is going to leave. And so let's have this experience. And that's where it's like she cannot be harmed by rhinoceros or man. You cannot be harmed by that disease. This is your experience. This is your real life. Like, yes, if you measure your real life, your experience against someone else's, yours may come up short. But why are you measuring?
Yeah.
This brings you to knowing your real life. This brings you to knowing your real experience. And she can't be harmed by Rhinoceros Man because her movements flow from her being. And she cannot be fooled by illusion or hallucination. And you can look at your stories about being trapped, being a victim, being trapped, whatever, as illusion or as hallucination. And the next line is her actions flow from her being. They flow from you. They don't come from outside. The movements and actions in your life don't come from outside of you. You're not a victim. Just like, when we look at that accident, we can look at, okay, this is what happened, and or we can say, oh, wait, all of that is just manifestation. How am I perceiving it? Because how I'm perceiving it is giving me truths about myself. And my actions, if they're under the influence of those things, will flow from being under the influence of responsibility. But if I can see that and get to know real life, right? The master lives with her, aware of her appointment with death. This brings her to knowing real life. How do you know real life? By not looking at the actions, not looking at the manifestation around you, but looking at your experience of that and saying, oh, this is where I'm under the influence. Let's strip away that influence and see where I am. And then you slowly iterate and move into a space of knowing the deep truth of who you are. She has freed herself of all separateness. You're connected to everything, everyone, always. And you've even freed yourself of the distinction between life and death. And so this is your life. And you've even freed yourself of the definition of capable and incapable, or of sick and or ill and healthy, and all of those things. All of that stuff comes when you realize that you are at one with everything.
Yeah, that it's all just an experience.
It's all just and it's not just any experience. This is your experience. You can't have anything else. And if you think someone else is having an experience, that's your experience too. You're experiencing the belief of someone else having an experience that you could not possibly know about.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I'm somewhat. I'm just looking. I've got your book, so I'm just looking through the verse again, and what's coming to mind is something I heard the other day. Is that the only? There's a couple of things. The only obligation we have in this lifetime is to be true to ourselves,
right.
And that the only measure of success is to be yourself, and I guess once as you say, recover ourselves. Mm-hmm. Then once we remove all of that conditioning through these ideas of potentially iteration, we have the opportunity to be more true to ourselves. And I think at that point, maybe at that point, I'm hoping the experience will subsequently change as well. And so the experience may be more in alignment, if you like, with my true self.
Well, and I would push back a little bit about the idea that our only is to be true to ourselves, because sometimes it is, like, especially because that is like you're going to define that differently at different times, and if in order for us to be true to ourselves, we have to know what it's like to lie to ourselves. You know, we have to know the entire experience, and we have to have experiences in which we are not being true to ourselves so that we can understand ourselves.
Yeah, we need actually that contrast.
Right. You have to.
Be able to be able to see the other side. Yeah.
Right. And it's good for us to learn, just like you had the experience with the accident, and yes, it's possible that if every experience that you have is aligned, then everything, quote unquote, should go well. But it's like that, that Chinese proverb of like, we'll see, his son's got a broken leg. Is that an experience that, well, we'll see. Like, if you can get to the place of we'll see.
Yeah.
It's not that your experience is going to change. Because
I'm sorry, that comes back to something that was oddly the first thing I wanted to talk to you about. So we've come full circle to it. And it was actually the idea of surrendering.
Right.
You mentioned it in your talk. You mentioned it earlier on about surrendering when drowning, and that really I think we'll see is very much a case of surrendering.
Yeah, and you're just like, hey, this happened. My son broke his leg. I got in a car accident. This happened. We'll see. But when you have heightened emotions around it, that means there's resistance. That resistance is teaching you about yourself, where you are resistant to experiencing what life is giving you. This is why she cannot be harmed by rhinoceros or man. Not because she won't be, but because she lives as if she cannot be.
Yeah. I'm going to have to ponder that line a little bit, because I do struggle with that line. So, I partly get it, but I like the idea now that I realize that, again, this is a bit of a duality point of view, that maybe resistance is the opposite of surrender. So by resisting something, we're not surrendering to it. And
right. And that line, she cannot be harmed by rhinoceros or man, is, it's like there's another line about a baby boy, and he can't be stung. Well, of course he can be stung.
Yeah.
But he's not going into an experience thinking he's going to be stung. He's going to poke at the bee because it's a bee. And he's exploring the world without fear. And then he's going to get stung, and he's going to be like, bitch, like, I got stung. Okay. Like, now I'm going to take care of this. And is it going to be met with like, it's okay? Or are you going to build a fear around it?
Yeah.
And that's where, like, she cannot be harmed by rhinoceros or man. She cannot be fooled by illusion or hallucination, because that's what's like, there's an illusion that you can be harmed at all.
Yes. Okay. Oh, thank you very much, Martin John. I know my time's running out, but it's been great to talk to you, to catch up. I appreciate that. And I will catch up with you again soon. And I hope you have a great day.
You too. And it's always wonderful to catch up and chat. And I hope that everything is going well with you. Good. I'm glad. And it's always nice to explore this. Dualism is a hard thing to break from, because dualism has cause and effect. Dualism has like, you are this, I am this, and it feels like, every time we open our eyes, we are separate, right? We are not part of the wall. We cannot, like in all of these things. We are not somebody else. We are ourselves, and we wake up as ourselves every day. At least that's how we experience it. Whether or not that's true, don't know. But that's definitely how we experience it. So, thank you guys for joining me. This is Martin John, and we are listening to Tao of the Day. I come on 6 a.m. Central Time, Monday through Friday, and always open to sharing a little Tao. If you're interested in contacting me, you can do so through my website. You can find links to everything that I do in my profile here on Noom Vibe. And until next time, keep recovering yourself.